Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Wolverine number 45, cover dated early September 1991. So during this period, this particular summer, the title was on sale twice a month, and Marc Silvestri covered all of those issues, but the interior page count is reduced to 18 pages of story. Really great cover here. Interesting idea for the cover, the up angle on the cage with the Hunter in Darkness being pulled by this particular helicopter, and it reverses the cover idea for issue number 42, where we were looking down from the vantage point of a helicopter over Midtown Manhattan, and we had Cable, Wolverine and Sabretooth hanging out of that particular helicopter. So the cover features Lady Deathstrike, Sabretooth, the Hunter in Darkness, Wolverine. It's really well done, nicely penciled by Marc Silvestri and inked by Dan Green. Great degree of care on the cover. It feels to me like some of the interior pages might have been a little bit rushed because of that bi-weekly schedule that everyone was trying to stick to. So let's open this one up to the splash page. And we have Wolverine there still in Midtown Manhattan, and Jubilee has caught up with him. Title of the story is Claws over Times Square, and the creative team script, Larry Hama, breakdowns, Marc Silvestri, and you can see there finishes Dan Green. So again, Marc Silvestri pumping out those pages as fast as he can, not doing full pencils in order to facilitate that. Also, Silvestri says himself he doesn't like drawing straight lines. So for a story set in Midtown Manhattan, he's had to bring out the ruler in order to get all of these particular buildings in perspective. So that would take time too. The finishes are by Dan Green, excuse me, the lettering by Pat Brousseau, and the coloring by Steve Buccellato. So Jubilee is asking Wolverine about what he's up to. I saw the story on the 6 o'clock news, she says, and I remembered what you told me about what happened up in Canada. That was the first story with the Hunter in Darkness, the done in one of issue number 34, a really great issue, fantastic story, fantastic art. Jubilee continues and says, I was just like hoping maybe you weren't going to do something you might regret in the morning. And I really like this piece of dialogue that Larry Hama gives Wolverine, like he's in a very tough guy macho pose there, smoking a cigar, looking down over the roofs of Manhattan, and he says, I take my regrets out every night and dump them in the trash. Jubilee. That's good stuff. And this particular splash page, it did remind me of more a kind of a Batman type trope. Even the pose that Wolverine's in, you can well imagine Batman in that pose with the cape going behind him there and Robin up on a chimney. But it's not, it's a Wolverine story and it's taking place in the urban jungle. So let's continue with it. So Jubilee continues hounding Wolverine about what he's been doing recently. First, you let that little robot LCD get under your skin and that almost got you killed down in Morlock Alley. And now you're getting all sentimental about something that lives in the woods and eats its dinner raw. But Wolverine tells her, leave me alone. And he jumps right off the edge of that building. And he's aiming for this particular advertising hoarding there. And Jubilee, great movement of the camera by Silvestri here, where we're looking down at Wolverine leaping off the edge of the building, and then we're looking up at him as he's falling towards that big advertising billboard hoarding. It's really good stuff. So he grabs he grabs some of the railing behind the billboard, and Jubilee says, whatever crazy Claude Critterbond you feel towards this, Ronald Parvenu. So it's Parvenu who has captured the Hunter in Darkness and is bringing him for exhibition to Atlantic City, but prior to that is going to display him in Midtown Manhattan. And Jubilee continues and says, Ronald Parvenu hasn't done anything wrong as far as the law is concerned. And Wolverine, somehow he's able to hear her from all that distance, way down, and he's following what she's saying to him. She's got exclamation marks, so she's shouting, even though the lettering is quite small. Wolverine says there as he balances on the railing, I know that Jubilee, he's every right in the world to spend his millions on a big hunting expedition into Canada to bring it back alive. Probably got himself a medal for ridding Buffalo Woods National Park of a man-killing menace. He has the right to use the Hunter in Darkness as an attraction to lure suckers into his casino, and he probably racked up brownie points with the City Tourism Board for displaying the Hunter right here in Times Square before he takes it down to Atlantic City. But I sure don't have to like it. So, you know, there's a kind of an affinity between Wolverine and animals, particularly in Larry Hama's run, going all the way back to the first 3-part story where the spider monkeys of Madripoor were all killed in order to produce this particular new drug. And Larry Hama continuing Wolverine's concern for animals, which of course issues from his own struggles over the years with his bestial animal side. So, you know, it's nicely appropriate that he have that affinity for the animals. But there's something else going on as well, potentially, and I'll talk about it in a few pages' time. Now, turn the page here, and I really like this page. It's a quiet page, and it's introducing a character, a new character, and we can see that she, as it turns out, is filling these magazines with bullets, shells, and getting ready to shoot someone, something. She says here, the bunting isn't moving, no crosswind, this should be a turkey shoot. By the way, this character, her visuals look very much like Ballistic. So Marc Silvestri liked the character design for this woman, and in my opinion, just use it for Ballistic. But I really like the lighting in these panels. It's really, really good stuff, and I like Dan Green's inking as well on this particular page. Nice spotting of blacks throughout. And then the scene switches to the bowels of the city in Morlock Alley, and this is like a scene from the old Frankenstein movies. So Albert is working to power up LCD, and he needs more and more power for it, rather like, you know, the trope of the old Frankenstein movies where more power is required to bring the monster to life. In the meanwhile, Mask, who is the leader of the Morlocks, absent Callisto, is being asked by them to maybe deal with Albert because he's taking over and using up all their power. But Mask is afraid of Albert. You haven't gazed into his fluorescent eyes, he says to them. So Albert continues with his operations on LCD, and as I said, he needs more power for what he wants to create for her. And then the scene switches to Lower Manhattan in the shadow of the Brooklyn Bridge. And this looks to me like a self-portrait by Marc Silvestri. So if you know Silvestri's face, I think you can see what I'm talking about. It's as if he was looking in a mirror for this particular pose, the hand and the gritted teeth. There's something a little bit more naturalistic about this face. And yeah, I think it's a self-portrait. But anyway, this guy with the ironic no handgun t-shirt, and he's pulled a knife on this woman who turns out to be like she's some kind of model or starlet actress or something of that kind. And he's mugging her, looking for her purse, and then he's grabbed by the whole of his neck, and his neck is cracked, crunched, and snapped off panel. And the woman is delighted. She tells her dog to be quiet. The dog is yapping away because the dog senses what's coming next. Terribly gallant of you, she says to her rescuer as she sees it. If you give me your name and address, I'll have my manager send you a nice check. I really like this. She just gets a punch in the face, is knocked out. Dog runs away there, and it's Sabretooth. Sabretooth has emerged from the East River. The name's Sabretooth, he says, and I don't take no checks. So then we're back at Times Square. Really like this particular panel and the uplighting there on Wolverine's face as he's leaning out above the top of the billboard. And he's thinking to himself about what Jubilee said to him. Maybe Jubilee is right. Could be that I'm setting myself up for a big fall by letting the wildness in me get the upper hand. But there must be a reason why I can't shake the feeling that there's some real strong link between me and the thing they captured up in Buffalo Woods. And that's what I'm wondering about. What is Hama suggesting here? Because, you know, there were There was play with the idea when it comes to Wolverine's origins that he is an evolved Wolverine, like he's an evolved creature of that kind, and or part of his parentage is some kind of beast like the Hunter in Darkness, somehow or other. And of course, Sabretooth has been claiming in recent issues to be Wolverine's father, but that's been proved false by a blood test done by S.H.I.E.L.D. So Sabretooth isn't Wolverine's father, but why does he believe he is? These are little mysteries that Hama's playing around with over the course of these current issues. I really like this as well, this kind of procedural business, where Wolverine is startled by the speakers that pop up behind him, and then the billboard starts splitting up, turning itself inside out. And that's really nicely done by Silvestri. Imagine being tasked with doing something like this. Silvestri does such a great job on it. And what is happening is the billboard is being turned into the world's biggest projection TV. Nice down shot there of Wolverine back in the shadows again and looking down towards Times Square as he thinks to himself, that Ronald Parvenu sure don't cut any corners when it comes to slinging the old bovine waist. I like that euphemism for BS. So down in the crowd, we've got Jubilee. She's pushing her way through. And meanwhile, Parvenu has arrived with the Hunter in Darkness in its cage. And who is his lady companion? Well, our suspicions are it's got to be Lady Deathstrike. Her name is Yuriko. That is Lady Deathstrike's name. But she looks a little bit different here, dressed all in leather. Obviously hiding her bionic parts. But Hama suggests in the dialogue that Parvenu and Lady Deathstrike have been romancing, let's put it that way. Once you've experienced the wonders of biotechnic improved life forms, you can't ever go back to the plain stuff, she says to him. And he says there with that big kind of 1930s villain look on his face, yeah, I'm impressed, Yuriko, but right now I have to get back to my first love, making money. So he's on microphone and camera, and he broadcasts down to the crowd in Times Square. Hello, New York, I'm Ronald Parvenu, and I'm here to give the Big Apple a free peek at the wonder of the decade. So some of the members of the crowd are skeptical. Parvenu's giving something away. That'll be the day. So I really like that too, that, Hama builds in a little bit of that kind of New York hard-bitten, hard-nosed cynicism into some of the comments by the people in the crowd as well. So then Parvenu speaking obviously through these speakers that are behind Wolverine. It's deafening him, and he's building up for the arrival of the Hunter in Darkness, feared by generations of local Indians as a quasi-mystical evil spirit of the forest. And as I said, like, some of the crowd members are skeptical. What's this jive, says one of them. It's just some furry thing with claws, right? Anyway, here's the helicopter, here's the cage, Parvenu up there talking to Yuriko. Look at that crowd. They're really eating this up. I can tell, I have a natural instinct for reading the reaction of the masses. And she responds, you certainly do, Ronald. That's why I came to you with my business proposition. And he says, among other things, you like the perks, Ronald? Yes, indeed, I do, he says. And again, that's Hama being double coding the comic for the older readers to infer what's been going on there. This is a really great page, 4 panels. Parvenu looking out, like the lighting on his face as well, both in the hatching by Dan Green as well as the colours by Buccellato. Parvenu, for any readers who are a little bit slow, clues us in on who exactly this is. What is that secret name you like me to call you? Deathwish, Death's Head, Deathstrike, Lady Deathstrike. And he says, I love it, Trey Kinky. And down on the street, who's this guy in very 1991 garb? It is Sabretooth. Yeah, it's hilarious. Look at the little diamonds there on the edge of his designer shades. That is funny stuff. And also just look how wild he looks. Actually, you know what? I've just been to see the Beetlejuice sequel. Something about that face reminds me of Beetlejuice. It's something about it. Yeah, really does give me that kind of vibe. Just that kind of tricksterish look on his face. And what happens here? Jubilee's still in the crowd, looking up, and she recognizes Deathstrike what's she doing here? Projected on the TV screen, of course. And so Parvenu releases the cover from the cage, and we get a really cool top-down angle on the Hunter in Darkness there, looking incredibly wild and bestial, growling in the cage. Great rendering of the fur on the face as well, and the snarl on the muzzle of the beast. It's good stuff. And the crowd here actually wowed. Golly, big sucker, ain't he? Look at them teeth. Wouldn't want to run into him on the subway. Is that cage strong enough? Well, you know, that cage has to fly apart. It's got to open. The beast has got to get out. So we'll just have to wait and see how that comes about. But we know it's coming. So Yuriko's thinking there, where is he? If anything can bring him out, this will. Because, of course, she has honor sworn to kill Wolverine, and there he is. We know he's there. We know he's watching everything. The crowd, the noise of the rotors, he says, the cage, the flying, it's all torture to that thing. Don't they understand that? And then our scene switches deep under the city. Albert is searching for more power. He wants to tap into the mains, and Mask is saying, you can't just divert a main line. The system can't handle a power drop like that. We get a big shot of the Hunter in Darkness growling there. Huge teeth. Massive wolf-like creature. And let's continue with the story. The whole Albert business is going to factor in, which I like. I like how the subplot comes together with the main plot. So, and remember our sniper in the apartment building? Well, she hasn't disappeared, and it looks like she's out for the Hunter in Darkness. And she says, you made my whole life, you made me miserable my whole life, and now you're going to pay. So what's the reason for that? Is it that the Hunter in Darkness killed her parents or something years ago? Hard to know. But she shoots, and the beast moved. All I did was nick him as she gets ready to shoot again. But Wolverine is alert to what's happening. Parvenu too. He commands his pilot to get them out of there. And I like the dialogue from the pilot. I told you this town was Wacko City, Mr. Parvenu. So, of course, it's New York City in the Marvel Universe. And that is an accurate description of it in the Marvel Universe. And now we get a nice anchor image of Wolverine leaping down from behind the billboard and saying, you know, Parvenu, I'm getting to the point where I don't care about your rights anymore. Just picking up on Jubilee said earlier in the issue, in the story, as well as Wolverine's own thoughts about Parvenu's rights, especially when you're stomping all over the rights of something that can't even fight back. Yeah, so there's a kind of like, there's a subtext of animal rights ethos coming through the Wolverine title. As I said, you know, in relation to the spider monkeys in the first 3 issues of the Hama Silvestri run, and now again in relation to the Hunter in Darkness. Wolverine here leaping towards the cage. This is really well done by Silvestri. Wolverine saying as he leaps, who knows, if somebody don't stop this now, might be folks like me in the cage next time. And then Sabretooth takes off his disguise, his hat, his glasses. Oh, he's wearing your man's t-shirt. That's it. That's the one with the no handgun symbol. That's where he got the clothes from. Ha, he says. I just knew that little old sonny boy of mine couldn't stay far away from this shindig. So there he is. And then the scene switches to the lower depths of the city. And Albert cuts into the main trunk line. And that is going to cut off. There's going to be a power cut in all of Midtown Manhattan, which is what we see here. We see Times Square going dark, panel to panel. And this is kind of funny too. Where Lady Deathstrike rips off her leather jacket, and Parvenu says, this is no time for that. That's hilarious. And then she tells him, she's all business now, get out of my way before I have to shove your face in. You're blocking my access to the door. So everything is happening in darkness. Sabretooth up on this lamp post, uses it to leap up onto the cage. Funny dialogue here where he says to Wolverine, come back here, sonny boy, your daddy wants to play with you. That's hilarious. And now Lady Deathstrike is dropping down from the chopper as well. And now we've got all 3 on the cage. This is really good stuff. And nice the tilted angle that Silvestri's come up with, as well as the spotting of blacks on the figures too. So Wolverine gets a little crack in. Yuriko, Sabretooth, what is this, old home week? And there's our shooter again. See what I mean? Looks like ballistic, doesn't it? If you were a reader of Cyberforce, it looks exactly like her. In any case, she says, can't separate out my target in the dark, can't get a solid bead on the hunter in darkness. Where did those other three come from, and why are they trying to tear each other's throats out on top of the cage? Great up shot of the cage and the helicopter. It's really the inspiration for our cover there, that particular panel. Jubilee calling after Wolvie, too dark to see what my favorite mutant is up to up there. So she uses her mutant power to throw some light on the subject. Wolverine's not grateful at all. Thanks a heap, Jube. Now they can both see what they're slashing at, but we get a great anchor image here of the fight between Sabretooth, Deathstrike, and Wolverine. So he's fighting on two fronts there. And meanwhile, the helicopter pilot is in trouble because he's blinded by Jubilee's flares. And Parvenu tells him, watch out for that water tower, pull up, pull up. What about the cage? Forget the cage. So here we go. Turn the page, page 18. Cage is smashed against the water tower. Everyone survives, and the hunter in darkness is out of the cage and looking ready there for some bestial action in the next issue. So, what a pretty fun story in this particular one. Some nice art, not getting the same level of detail one would get from Silvestri when he's doing full pencils. But as I said, it's all down to that bi-weekly schedule that the book is on, but really smooth storytelling, some fun little bits in Larry Hama's dialogue as well. And there's a letters page in this issue. Here it is. So we've got letters about issue 42. And then we get actually a pin-up. So a 2-page pin-up. Second page there is kind of wasted by Art T-Bear. And yeah, it's not too bad. It's a reasonably alright version of Wolverine, although I think his left thigh there is huge. I mean, like, it's artistic exaggeration, but it's huge. And his claws there, they look like butter knives. But however, you know, the readers were getting 2 more pages of Wolverine art in this particular issue. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Wolverine number 45. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section to the video. If you enjoyed my review, please like the video on YouTube and consider sharing. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.